I got it, might pull up, we fixin' that business. You get it? Two women, they kissin'. Usher start kicking off.
Okay, maybe like right there. This is going to be part 3 of recounting my United States Navy service. Today's part, like I said, we got the handy dandy right in the rain that will stay with me forever. We're going to talk about Corps School, Guam, and then depending how long that takes, we'll kind of make a decision from there. We'll actually change it up. Part 3 will be kind of me, what happened after I quit BUDS, getting re-rated as a corpsman, going to Corps School, introduction to Guam, and then depending how the time goes, we'll see where we're at. So we finished the last video talking about me quitting BUDS, right? I quit it. And as soon as you quit, you're kind of put in this holding period. So you stay at the barracks for a little bit, and then you usually move over to 32nd Street. And at 32nd Street, you're in this weird limbo state where your life is mustering every couple hours and being cut halfway through the day. And then you're waiting for the Navy to get you a new job. I remember when I first quit, I almost immediately went to the Marine Corps recruiter and Army recruiter. And unfortunately, they're like, hey man, you signed a contract with the Navy. Like the Navy has to formally discharge you from the Navy from your contract. And then you'd have to go through the recruiting process of joining the Marine Corps or Army. So that really wasn't an option at the time, or maybe it was, but again, I was too young and too new to the Navy to understand like the administrative side of getting that figured out. So I bit the bullet. Cool, staying in the Navy now. I signed a 6-year contract, so I'm along for the ride for 6 years. In a way, I was very fortunate to have quit sooner in the pipeline rather than later because I had more job options. When I quit, I had the option of being a logistics specialist. There was an IT, I forget what that stands for. There was cryptology. I had offers to go into EOD or air rescue, or I could have gone undesignated. Undesignated is like the worst option for you. I think it's the Navy's best recruiting tool of like taking young men who are very smart and educated. They quit BUDS and then they make them go undesignated. For those who don't know what undesignated is, it is basically you are doing the epitome of bitch work on a ship. Painting it, scraping off barnacles. It's not a good gig. You can re-rate. That's how they sell it to you. It's like, oh bro, if you don't know what to do in the Navy, just go undesignated. You go on a ship, you can see all of the rates, and then you can pick what rate you want later. Don't do that. If you are joining the Navy, do not go undesignated. Unless you're in a very terrible situation and trying to get out of there, yeah, I would not recommend going undesignated. It is not as simple as you're in the Navy and you pick a new job. So I put corpsman as my top pick, and I think I did like logistics specialist in another one. I chose corpsman because I knew I could go down either the reconnaissance pipeline, go green side. That was kind of my initial, like, whatever, cool. If I go become a corpsman, that's my fastest way back into like doing infantry cool guy stuff, In 32nd Street for about a month, so about most of January. I got to Corps School February of 2017. Corps School was in San Antonio. It was an integrated class. So we had some Army cats and Air Force cats. No Army, just Air Force. So it was Navy, Air Force. Same thing as before. The Corps School regiment or curriculum has changed since going through. So this video is dated, just recounting my experiences. At the time, we went through the first month or two was all EMT basic. And then you do like your nursing and clinical foundations. And then you actually do a couple weeks of clinicals, which entails working at the local hospital. I think it's changed now. You actually get your Tactical Combat Casualty Care Cert, TCCC. They do a lot of shipboard medicine, and the curriculum has changed. So like I said, when I was going through, the Corps School pipeline was very much focused on getting you inside of a hospital. There really wasn't a push for this green side or shipboard orders or going to field med. Different times have changed. When I went through Corps School, I was a very bitter soul. Again, I just quit BUDS. And as I talked about my first part, what was frustrating about being that, you're a young man, you just quit on your dreams. And when I got to Corps School, it's kind of two parts. One part, I brought it onto myself, right? I was still wearing the BUDS boots, the BUDS belt. are still saying who ya, kind of just like making myself stand out. But on the second part too, it was frustrating to have people in the Navy in charge of you to like make fun of you, and your peers give you shit for trying to become a SEAL and quitting. It goes back to that man in the arena speech. So you don't know what it's like to be there, and I was there. So it was, like I said, two parts. I brought it onto myself by being like just talking about buds, but at the same time, that's all I knew. And then the other part too was like, I was not a fan of the way the instructors and my peers like talked to me and like demeaned me for trying out for buds. Also, at the time, I was 18 years old, so I was taking stuff very personally. I was like having a legitimate identity crisis. Like my whole life growing up, I was trying to become a SEAL. Well, actually, no, I wasn't even trying to become a SEAL. I was trying to become a Marine. My identity in the Navy at that point had tried to becoming a SEAL, and that didn't work out. And so I was just struggling with that a lot. And same thing with my peer group too. Like a couple of guys I went to buds with, we quit around the same time. We ended up in Corps school, so we just stayed in our own little clique. Corps school though, if you zoom out, it was a good time. It was just me and a roommate. They give you the curriculum. Same thing like boot camp. Corps school is not hard. Your whole job is to become a corpsman. So I don't know, I would just get off work out, and then I would study the books, and then boom, like you graduate Corps school. For better or worse, right? The military anybody can join the military. I say anybody with asterisks, but the curriculum, the way of living is designed for people fresh out of high school. So it doesn't take too much critical thinking, in my opinion, to become a corpsman. And the tests are easy. They give you what's going to be on the test. You study the books, kind of rinse and repeat over the course of the 4 or 5 months you're there. What else do I have? Same thing with like boot camp. I don't have any funny Corps school stories. I was just kind of doing my own thing. I was very, still dealing with the fact that I quit buds and trying to figure out my new identity. So Corps school, very unremarkable experience. I just, boom, went through Corps school. Orders were very limited. I think there was only 2 orders to Greenside units. There was one for 3rd Marine Division, which like the guy at the highest score in the class took it. And then there was another order to 1st MLG. And I knew, like, for those of you who are corpsmen, it's like, if you're going to be a Greenside corpsman, like the infantry, you want to go with a regiment or a battalion. You do not want to go with Medlog or the wing. Just a place of pride. Honestly, it's not that deep, but I knew I wanted to be with the infantry. And so that wasn't an option. There were orders overseas, and I chose Guam as my first duty station. I was very lucky, me and my friend. I don't feel comfortable saying names quite yet. Maybe I will, I don't know. But me and my friend, we ended up choosing going to Guam together. And so Guam was my first duty station in the United States Navy. Guam was a rad experience. Like that was a really cool duty station for like me to grow up and mature. I moved overseas, moved away from all my family, was in a different time zone, and just like finally being an adult and being on my own and working, I would say, a regular job. I worked at Naval Hospital Guam for 2 years. The first year I spent in pediatrics, and then my second year I spent in the emergency room. Now you can understand, going from Navy SEAL training to pediatrics at a hospital was a very radical identity change and shift. I never saw myself doing it in the military, and I was very, again, bitter, never in front of the patients, but behind the scenes, I was a very bitter soul. Thankfully, I had probably the best group of doctors and like leadership that could have met me at that time, because they would like listen to me, I guess, complain and bitch about my frustrations with the Navy, and I quit buds, and like feeling sorry for myself. And they listened to me and like, cool, that's great. You are a corpsman here. We've got patients to see. I need you to be good at this job. And I remember having a conversation with one of my leadership. We were talking about it. And he's like, look, man, I get it. Like you quit buds and you want to go back, but you talking about it all the time like is not helping your situation. And he's like, you need to unfortunately/fortunately play the game. If you do good at your job, take this seriously, and take your fitness on the off time seriously, you will go back to whether it's buds or any of the special forces or what you want to do. But it's like your identity cannot be the buds, the term is buds dud. And that conversation really changed my perspective a lot. And I started taking my job a lot more serious. Like the same amount of effort I took to becoming a BUDS candidate, I was going to put into becoming a corpsman. And that would actually translate well into me getting to the emergency room, which we'll talk about in a bit. Yeah, pediatrics, I just had 5 rad doctors that just took me under their wing, and they taught me like very awesome corpsman fundamentals, things like taking a proper note, getting a proper patient intake, taking vital signs properly, documentation, and then using kind of your critical thinking skills to make a diagnosis. I am very thankful for the leadership at pediatrics, and I'm just thankful for my time at pediatrics for building a very strong foundation. Because again, I was very butthurt. Like, I didn't go to the ER, I didn't go to the infantry, I didn't become a corpsman, to do these things. But in hindsight, I'm very thankful to not have been thrusted straight into the ER and straight into the infantry, because I would have had no foundational skills. Now that I had these foundational skills as a corpsman, when I went to the ER, I could focus on the more high-speed procedures. I could focus on the cooler stuff. When I got to the infantry later on, I had spent so much time in the hospital, both on the patient care side and the administrative side. I could take care of my Marines well. I had a good rapport with my doctors and IDCs, so I could focus on being an infantry corpsman. So for those who are in a rush of going with the infantry or doing the more high-speed stuff in the military, I get it, right? We join the military for those things. And that's not to fault anybody who does those things right away. But I'm thankful to have gotten very good clinical patient care foundation skills, because that opened up the door for a lot of opportunities farther down the road. Do what you want with the information. Also in the Navy though, oftentimes you don't get a goddamn choice where you want to go. Like, I was very lucky to go to the pediatrics and ER. There are some guys who have worked in the laboratory, immunizations, and patient records. And all you do at immunizations is you give shots. Patient records, you are sitting behind a desk, organizing records and donating files. All important jobs in the military. I really think, I'm not trying to sound like a grass is greener, kiss ass, whatever, but everything in medical is important. It's just like, obviously the recruiting commercials are not going to show the guy sitting at patient admin. They're going to show the infantry corpsman. They're going to show the guy working the ER, the ICU. Bit of a tangent there. So I spent a year in pediatrics, and like I said, awesome clinical foundation skills. And then I moved to Naval Hospital Guam's ER, which again, if you're a corpsman, if you get the chance to go to Guam and work in the ER ICU, that is hands down like the best experience you have as a corpsman outside of like HNTT or like TCCC courses. Like, because Guam's hospital is one of the only like trauma bays in the military. From what I understand, this is again a little dated, so I don't know if at the time it was the only trauma bay. If you wanted to see trauma consistently, you'd have to put in a package to work at like LA trauma, Chicago trauma, Ohio. But like Guam's ER, there's no other trauma bays on the island. So any car accident, CPR, violence, whatever, those victims will come to that hospital first to stabilize them. And then if you're a big like medical nerd, the ICU, again, Guam's population, if you're interested in like cardiac issues, dealing with diabetes, obesity, these crazy skin diseases, I can't even name all of them. If you're interested in actual like practicing good medicine and learning how to take care of somebody with limited resources because of the island, I would highly recommend that duty station. And then for those who've been to Guam, half a day, like kind of corny, but that's how they say hello there. And half a day will get you a lot of clout amongst the Chamorros. Again, Chamorros, not Guamanians, Chamorros, all right? That's, again, more clout there. So Guam's ER, I won't go too in depth to all the patients I had seen. I don't know what it's like to talk about I don't know the legalities to talk about some of the things I've seen. Obviously, I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, you were guaranteed at least once a shift period to see some kind of CPR. You're guaranteed to see some kind of like cardiac arrest or like a serious cardiac patient. You were guaranteed to deal with someone with some kind of COPD, congestive heart failure, pneumonia. And Guam's ER gave me a lot of like, what do they call it? Procedural skills. IVs, sutures, wound care, patient interactions, that customer service. I hate the term customer service, but that customer service side of taking care of patients and just like thinking quick on your feet. And the other thing I liked about Guam's ER, and this would come out something I liked in the future, is that there was kind of a vetting process to get there. For those of you who have been in the military, there's a thing called a PQS. I think it's like a personnel qualification sheet or standard. It's something like that. It's this long checklist of things, and you get it signed off by a superior. And then once you get the whole thing signed off, you'll have to do like some kind of verbal board and then some kind of like actual physical test. You would finish the PQS, and then you would basically have to run a trauma patient in the ER by yourself. So like it would present as, hey, your patient comes in, you know, he's complaining of chest pain, 70-year-old male with a history of COPD, history of smoking, he's got type 2 diabetes, and he's presenting with chest pain on and off last week. And then from there, there'll be like the nurse is running a little iPad, they're giving you vitals, and like as you're treating this patient, he starts deteriorating, and you have to make the appropriate calls and justify why you're doing it. And then it turns like, okay, set up a chest tube, set up something for intubation, set up something for a central line. It's like, it's cool. I am very thankful for that experience. And I spent a lot of time in that freaking trauma bay practicing these runs. A lot of times on the weekends coming in, learning how a trauma bay was set up, learning procedures. I have a whole green notebook filled front to back with a bunch of notes in it. And again, I will say that Guam's ER set me up with, again, good clinical foundation skills and study skills that would translate well later down in my career. Yeah, I cannot speak highly enough of my experience at Guam. There was one patient that will always change my perspective on life. I think I was 19 years old at the time, and this woman presented with kind of like just random like abdominal pain, kind of altered mental status. And as we were getting her blood pressure tanked, and we moved her to the trauma bay, and we did a quick ultrasound. It turned out she was having an acute aortic aneurysm, which basically is the main vessel in your stomach. It blew up in layman's terms. And I watched this patient go from fully coherent to dead within about 10 minutes. And I remember like we were all getting ready to do surgery, get her set up for the surgical suite, and she had a DNR in her record. And I remember having her kid on FaceTime with her as she was passing away. And she had said something along the lines of, I wish I would have spoken to you more. I wish I had done more with you. And then she passed away. And that line always stood out to me. And just learning kind of like working in the ER, being around people who are dying a lot and sick a lot, it'll make you appreciate life more and make you want to take care of yourself more. And just learning the fickleness or like the fragility of life. Things happen very quickly, very rapidly. And that death specifically stood out to me and has definitely changed my perspective on when I speak to people. I'm not one of those people who's like, I just tell it how like it is. You know, if you couldn't handle the truth, whatever. But I will say I'm definitely more blunt and straight to the point because I'd rather not beat around the bush. I would rather just, be honest with the situation. Honestly with tactfulness. Again, you can be a dick very easily by just, I tell it how it is, and it's taking me many years to kind of work on that. But I will say working in the ER, being around death, just helped me develop the way I speak and handle things. Because life is just too short and too fragile to beat around the bush, to not tell people how you feel, to do the things that you want to do. So I think that's it's a long enough video for now. So that's part 3, talking about my time in pediatrics in Guam. I think the next video we'll talk about moving on from Guam, talk about my time at PhilMed and Camp Pendleton in Rhode Island. Thank you for watching the video. If you watched all the way through, even if you watched parts of it, I really appreciate you guys watching it. I got a lot of cool comments. This is definitely a neat experience, recording myself and filming this while I'm traveling across Southeast Asia. So yeah, thank you for watching. Comment down below the usual stuff, the usual type YouTube things, and then I will see you guys in the next part.